The sky above the alien planet was a deep shade of purple, streaked with flashes of red and orange. Ethan Drake stood in the center of the arena, his boots planted firmly on the cold, hard sand. Around him, the air buzzed with tension. The alien crowd in the stands watched him intently, their eyes glowing with strange colors, their faces alien in every sense of the word. They weren't just watching a fight, they were watching him. He wasn't supposed to be here, he was supposed to be dead. Ethan had been captured during a routine day on Earth, swept up by an alien force that had come without warning. His home was nothing more than a memory now, his family and friends lost in the wake of his abduction. The aliens had come, taken him, and tossed him into the pit of their games, a brutal, unending battle where only the strongest survived. And Ethan, he was just a human. No special enhancements, no advanced training. Just a regular man far from his home, standing in the heart of an arena designed for death. But there was one thing the aliens hadn't counted on. Ethan wasn't like the other prisoners they had thrown into the arena. He had nothing left to lose, but he had everything to fight for. And he wasn't about to let these creatures treat him like an animal. The announcer's voice echoed through the speakers, a cold and metallic tone that seemed to hang in the air. The first challenge begins now. Let the games begin. The ground beneath Ethan's feet trembled, and the massive gate across the arena slowly began to rise. From behind it, a huge reptilian creature emerged, its scales glistening in the harsh light. It was a massive predator, towering over Ethan with glowing eyes and jaws sharp enough to tear through armor. Its claws clicked against the sand as it stepped forward, muscles rippling with each movement. It looked like something straight out of a nightmare. The crowd let out a deafening roar, their eyes filled with excitement. To them, this was just another fight. To them, this was just entertainment. But Ethan wasn't here to entertain them. He was here to survive. The creature growled, its mouth opening to reveal rows of razor-sharp teeth. Ethan's body tensed and his heart hammered in his chest. He didn't have any weapons, no armor, nothing but his fists and the will to live. His first instinct was to run to get out of the arena. But that wasn't an option. The walls around him were too high, and even if he could somehow escape, what would he be escaping to? More of them. More creatures that wanted to destroy him. More games? No. If he was going to survive, he needed to fight. "Come on then," Ethan whispered to himself, clenching his fists. "Let's see what you've got." The alien predator let out a terrifying roar and charged, its claws extended, moving with blinding speed. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as the creature bore down on him. It was too fast, too strong. There was no way he could outrun it. But he didn't need to outrun it. He just needed to survive. At the last second, Ethan dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the creature's deadly swipe. He hit the sand hard, his shoulder scraping against the rough surface, but he didn't stop. He rolled to his feet and turned to face the beast. It was coming again. The creature's eyes glowed with hunger, its massive form charging at him like a freight train. But Ethan was already moving. His body reacted before his mind could even catch up. He dodged again, barely avoiding the creature's claws as they slashed through the air. He was fast. He had to be faster than it. Ethan didn't have much time. The creature was relentless, its every movement filled with raw power. But as he dodged another strike, something clicked in his mind. He wasn't going to win by running. He wasn't going to win by trying to outrun it. He had to make a stand. He had to use whatever he could to survive. Ethan scanned the arena, his eyes flicking across the sand. There was nothing nearby that could help him. No weapons, no tools, just the barren floor of the arena. But his eyes landed on something, a large, jagged piece of debris from the broken walls around the arena. It was small, but it was sharp. It could be enough. The creature roared, its claws slashing again. Ethan ducked and darted toward the piece of debris, grabbing it and turning just in time to block the alien's next strike. The jagged metal scraped against the creature's claws, and Ethan's heart raced as he pushed forward, driving the weapon into its side. The alien let out a screech of pain, but it didn't stop. It swiped at him with its other claw, knocking Ethan off his feet and sending him sprawling to the ground. The wind was knocked out of him, but he didn't have time to think. The creature was on him, its massive weight bearing down. Ethan's hand gripped the metal shard tighter, and with a roar, he jabbed it into the creature's exposed throat. The alien let out one final, desperate roar before collapsing, its body crashing to the sand with a heavy thud. Ethan lay there, his body shaking with adrenaline and exhaustion, his chest heaving. For a moment, everything was still. The creature was dead. The crowd was silent. It felt like an eternity. Then the alien announcer's voice broke the silence. Victory for the human. Ethan blinked, his mind still spinning from the fight. The crowd erupted into applause. He had done it. He had survived. But even as the cheers filled the air, Ethan knew this wasn't over. He had won the battle, but the war wasn't over. There would be more fights, more creatures, more challenges, and he wasn't going to stop. He had made it this far, and he would keep fighting for his survival, for his freedom, for Earth. The silence that followed Ethan's victory was deafening. The roar of the alien crowd was replaced by an eerie stillness, as if the universe itself had paused in disbelief. The massive creature lay dead at his feet, its blood pooling in the sand. Ethan's chest heaved with every breath, his body trembling from the effort of the fight. His heart was still racing, but he didn't take a moment to rest. He couldn't afford to. The announcer's voice rang through the arena, cold and mechanical. Victory for the human, but the games are far from over. Prepare for the next challenge. Ethan barely had time to process the words before the gate at the far end of the arena began to open with a loud mechanical groan. The crowd, still buzzing with excitement from the previous fight, began to quiet down, the tension thickening in the air. Ethan's eyes flicked to the gate, his breath catching in his throat. He had survived the first fight, but that was just the beginning. The real test was still ahead of him. As the gates parted, Ethan's heart sank. A new opponent stepped forward. It was a creature that made the last one seem small in comparison, a hulking brute with massive tusks that curled outward like a wild boar. Its skin was thick and armored, covered in scars from past battles. Its eyes glowed a fierce yellow, filled with an intelligence that sent a chill down Ethan's spine. This was no animal, this was a warrior. The creature's low growl sent vibrations through the ground, and the crowd erupted in excitement. The alien was larger, stronger, and more prepared than anything Ethan had faced before. It was armed with a massive spiked mace, its head gleaming with deadly precision. Ethan's hands tightened into fists. He didn't have time to panic. He couldn't afford to. He had faced worse odds before, but this felt different. This wasn't just another alien to fight, it was the embodiment of the arena's cruelty. A being that had been bred for violence, built to crush everything in its path, and now it was here to crush him. "Come on then," Ethan whispered to himself, his voice barely audible over the cheers of the crowd. His body still ached from the last fight, but he pushed the pain aside. There was no room for weakness now. The creature charged, its massive body moving faster than expected, its mace swinging through the air with terrifying force. Ethan's body reacted before his mind could catch up. He dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the blow. The ground shook beneath him as the mace smashed into the sand, leaving a crater where Ethan had been standing seconds before. His instincts kicked in. He couldn't run, he couldn't hide. This wasn't a fight he could win by outlasting his opponent. He had to fight smarter. The creature turned and swung again, but Ethan was already moving. He rolled to his feet and dashed to the edge of the arena, his eyes scanning for anything that could give him an advantage. There was nothing. The arena was barren, stripped of any useful tools or weapons, but Ethan wasn't done yet. He had learned to use the environment to his advantage before, and he would do it again. As the creature swung again, Ethan ducked beneath its blow and dashed toward the creature's exposed side. His hand found a sharp shard of metal embedded in the ground, and with a quick motion, he gripped it tightly. The alien roared, its mace swinging in a wild arc, but Ethan was quicker. He moved with the precision of a trained fighter, driving the metal shard into the creature's side. The alien howled in pain, but it didn't stop. Instead, it turned on him, its tusks goring the air, its mace slamming down with all its strength. Ethan dodged, rolling across the sand. His body was already bruised, battered from the previous fight, but he refused to slow down. The creature wasn't giving him any room to breathe. Every time he moved, it was on him again, swinging its mace with ferocity. Ethan's mind raced as he scrambled to find a way to outsmart the creature. He couldn't match its strength. He couldn't match its size. But there was something the alien didn't have, something Ethan had learned to rely on in his life. He had willpower, and he wasn't going to give up. The creature lunged at him again, but this time Ethan was ready. As the alien's mace swung, Ethan ducked and grabbed the weapon's chain, pulling it toward him with all his strength. The creature was thrown off balance, its weapon now too heavy to control properly. Ethan didn't hesitate. He grabbed a rock from the ground and swung it at the alien's head, hitting it with all his might. The blow landed with a sickening crack. The alien staggered back, its head spinning from the impact. For the first time, the creature hesitated. Ethan seized the opportunity. He moved in close, grabbing the alien's mace and using it against him. The alien roared in frustration, but Ethan slammed the weapon into its side, striking at its armored plating again and again. The creature's strength began to fade, its swings growing slower and more desperate. Ethan knew it was only a matter of time. With one final, determined push, Ethan drove the mace into the alien's throat. The creature let out a strangled cry before collapsing to the sand, lifeless. The arena went silent. Ethan stood there, his breath ragged, his body covered in blood and sweat. He had done it. He had taken down the beast that no one thought a human could defeat. The crowd, once filled with shouts of excitement, was now eerily quiet. They had expected him to fall, but he hadn't. Ethan's gaze swept over the stands. The aliens who had once mocked him, who had believed that no human could survive their arena, now watched him with a different kind of respect. They had seen him fight, seen him win, and now they were starting to understand. He wasn't just surviving, he was fighting back. The silence that followed the fall of the Gorkin was suffocating. The vast arena, once filled with roars of excitement, now held its breath. Ethan stood, his chest heaving, his body trembling from the exhaustion of the fight. The massive alien lay before him, its life snuffed out by his own hand. He had won, but the weight of the victory felt heavy. He wasn't sure if it was the blood pumping through his veins, the adrenaline still coursing through his system, or the fact that he had just killed another creature that was far stronger than him. Maybe it was all of it. He had fought for survival, and somehow, against all odds, he had won. But something gnawed at the edges of his mind. There was a strange sense of unease that tugged at his chest. The crowd had fallen silent, but Ethan could feel their eyes upon him. Their gazes weren't filled with admiration or respect. It was something else, something darker. As the announcer's voice cut through the tension, breaking the silence, Ethan's instincts kicked in. "Victory to the human," the announcer boomed. "But the games are far from over. There will be no rest for the brave." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The aliens had watched him, tested him, and now they were going to push him further. He wasn't just a fighter to them. He was their entertainment, their challenge. And as much as he wanted to believe the fight was over, he knew better. Suddenly, the arena lights shifted, turning an eerie red as the walls around him began to move. The ground beneath his feet began to tremble, and a low rumble filled the air. Another door at the far end of the arena opened with a loud screech. Ethan's eyes narrowed and his heartbeat quickened. Something was different this time. He wasn't facing another fighter. He wasn't facing a beast. No, this time it felt personal. The alien gate opened fully, and out stepped something that made the crowd gasp in disbelief. It wasn't a creature at all. It was a person. A humanoid figure emerged, towering over Ethan with an aura of power and confidence that made the very air around them feel heavy. His face was hidden beneath a dark, reflective helmet, but Ethan could feel the malevolence radiating from him. The man, or whatever he was tall and clad in dark, armored plating, with sharp, angular lines that gave him the appearance of a predator. His posture was impeccable, and his steps exuded a calm, calculated confidence that sent chills down Ethan's spine. Ethan's eyes narrowed. This was no ordinary opponent. This was someone who had been sent for one reason, to break him. The figure raised a hand, and the crowd quieted, their attention now fully focused on the newcomer. The alien announcer's voice returned, but it was quieter, more somber than before. "Introducing the final trial for the human, the commander of the games, Coroner. He has defeated every challenger that has come before him, and now he will face the human who dares to challenge the arena." A chill ran through Ethan's spine. Coroner. The name felt like a death sentence. The alien had been sent to do what the others had failed at, to destroy him. Ethan's breath quickened and his fists clenched. He had no choice. He had to fight, but this was different. Coroner wasn't some mindless beast or savage alien. This was someone who understood the art of war, of combat, in a way Ethan couldn't even begin to grasp. The arena doors slammed shut behind him. Ethan was trapped. Coroner stepped forward, his movement graceful but filled with dangerous intent. His hand moved to the hilt of a long, glowing sword that was strapped to his side. The blade shimmered with a strange energy, like it was made from pure light. Ethan's instincts screamed at him to back away, to find a way out, but the words from earlier echoed in his mind. Only one will leave this arena alive. There was no escape. Coroner stopped a few paces in front of Ethan, his eyes still hidden behind the reflective helmet. But Ethan could feel the weight of his gaze. There was no doubt. This was a predator, and he was the prey. Ethan steadied himself, pushing the fear aside. He had made it this far. He had survived 2 impossible battles. He could survive this. He had no choice. "You will die here, human." Coroner's voice echoed through the arena, deep and cold like a warning. Ethan didn't respond. He didn't need to. Words wouldn't help him now. Coroner's sword pulsed with energy as the alien swung it forward in a blur of motion, aiming straight for Ethan's head. Ethan barely had time to react, ducking just as the blade cut through the air, leaving a trail of light. The power of the swing sent a shockwave that knocked Ethan off his feet, throwing him back onto the hard, unforgiving sand. Pain shot through his back, but he forced himself to get up. He couldn't afford to slow down. Coroner didn't stop. He didn't even wait for Ethan to recover. He pressed the attack, swinging his blade in a deadly arc. Each strike was faster, more precise than anything Ethan had faced before. The ground beneath Ethan's feet trembled with each strike, the arena vibrating with the force of Coroner's blows. The alien was toying with him. Ethan was no match for him in sheer strength, but he could fight back. He had to. The air was thick with tension. Ethan's breath was shallow, his mind racing to find a way to beat this monster. His heart hammered in his chest, but he refused to let the fear control him. He was here to survive, and if he wanted to win, he needed to think fast. Coroner swung again, but this time Ethan was ready. He leapt to the side, avoiding the strike and landing on his feet. His eyes darted around the arena, searching for anything that could help him. But there was nothing. Nothing but the weapon in Coroner's hand. Ethan's eyes locked onto the sword. It was glowing with an otherworldly energy. That was his only chance. If he could just get close enough, he could disarm Coroner, but it wouldn't be easy. The alien raised his sword for another strike, and Ethan knew this was his moment. With everything he had left, he sprinted toward Coroner, using the momentum from his run to jump at the last second. His hands grasped the hilt of the sword, and for a brief moment, he struggled with the alien's superior strength. But Ethan refused to let go. He pushed with every ounce of his willpower. His arms burned, his legs screamed with pain, but he wasn't going to give up. Not now. With a final, desperate shove, Ethan knocked the sword from Coroner's hands, sending it flying across the arena. Coroner let out a growl of frustration, his eyes flashing with fury beneath his helmet. He lunged at Ethan with his bare hands, but the human was quicker. In a burst of instinctive movement, Ethan drove a knee into Coroner's chest, sending the alien staggering backward. The crowd roared, but Ethan didn't hear them. All he could hear was the pounding of his own heart as he faced the greatest challenge of his life. He had won battles before, but this was the real fight. This was the fight for his life. And he wasn't going to stop until it was over. The arena was buzzing, the air thick with tension. The crowd was on the edge of their seats, watching in stunned silence as Ethan stood before Coroner, the alien commander who had been sent to crush him. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, his body still aching from the fight. His legs were shaky, but his resolve was stronger than ever. This was it. This was the fight that would decide everything. Coroner, the towering alien warrior, stood in front of him, towering over him with an expression of pure fury. His armor gleamed in the harsh lights of the arena, and his fists were clenched tightly, ready to strike. His eyes, hidden beneath his helmet, burned with hatred and contempt. "You should have known better, human," Coroner growled, his voice deep and menacing. "You're nothing but prey, and you will die like all the others." Ethan didn't flinch. He wasn't here to listen to threats or insults. He was here to fight, and he was going to win. He had come this far, he wasn't about to stop now. "You'll have to kill me first," Ethan said, his voice steady, despite the fear gnawing at him. "And that's not as easy as you think." Coroner's lips curled into a grin beneath his helmet. "I will enjoy this." The alien lunged at Ethan, his fists raised high. Ethan barely had time to react as Coroner's massive hand swung toward him. He ducked just in time, feeling the force of the blow whip past his ear. But Coroner was fast. The alien swung again, this time with a knee aimed directly at Ethan's stomach. Ethan stumbled back, but he managed to dodge, his feet skidding on the sand. His breath was ragged, but his mind was clear. Coroner was faster, stronger, and better equipped, but Ethan had one thing the alien didn't: human determination. He wasn't going to back down, not now, not after everything he had been through. Ethan used his agility, darting in and out of Coroner's reach. Every time the alien swung, Ethan dodged, ducked, or rolled to the side. The alien was relentless, his attacks unending, but Ethan didn't tire. He couldn't afford to. If he stopped moving, he would be dead. But as he moved, he began to see a pattern in Coroner's strikes. He was strong, but his moves were predictable, and that was Ethan's opening. The crowd watched in silence, completely captivated by the fight. They had seen many battles in the arena, but never one like this. Never had they seen a human face such an overwhelming opponent and still keep fighting. They were used to seeing the humans fall, but Ethan wasn't falling, not today. Ethan took a deep breath, his muscles screaming from the strain, but he focused, clearing his mind of the pain. He waited for Coroner to swing again, just as the alien had done dozens of times before. This time, as the massive fist came down, Ethan ducked low, using the alien's momentum to slide under his arm. In one swift motion, he grabbed Coroner's armored leg, using the alien's own weight against him. The alien tried to react, but Ethan was faster. He twisted, throwing Coroner off balance, sending the larger alien stumbling to the ground. The crowd gasped in shock. For the first time, Coroner was vulnerable. But Ethan didn't waste a second. He moved like lightning, grabbing a shard of debris from the ground and using it to drive into Coroner's side. The alien screamed in pain as the sharp metal pierced his armor, blood spilling onto the sand. Ethan didn't stop. He twisted the shard deeper, pushing with everything he had. He could hear Coroner's breath grow shallow, feel the creature's strength waning. With one final, powerful thrust, Ethan drove the shard into Coroner's chest. The alien let out a deafening roar, but it was no use. Coroner's body went limp, crashing to the sand with a massive thud. Ethan stood over him, chest heaving, sweat pouring down his face, but his eyes remained locked on the fallen predator. He had done it. He had won. The arena was dead silent. The crowd, who had once cheered for his death, now stared at him in stunned disbelief. They had seen the alien creatures fight. They had seen them tear through every challenge thrown at them. But this human, this small, seemingly insignificant creature, had defeated their greatest warrior. Ethan didn't care about their applause. He didn't care about their approval. He didn't need it. He was here to survive, to show them that no matter how strong they thought they were, no matter how powerful their weapons and warriors, humans would never be crushed. The announcer's voice rang out, a strange mix of respect and disbelief. The human, Ethan Drake, has defeated Coroner, the champion of the arena. He has proven himself. He has earned his survival. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, but the fight wasn't over yet. He could feel the eyes of the aliens on him, and he knew they weren't done with him. They never let anyone leave their arena unscathed. He had won this round, but he still had to face the consequences. The crowd began to murmur, their eyes shifting between each other, uncertain about what had just happened. They had never seen anything like this. A human had taken down Coroner, their mightiest warrior. What did it mean for them? What did it mean for the arena? Ethan didn't wait for their decision. He turned on his heel and began walking toward the edge of the arena. He knew he had earned something today, something they couldn't take from him. But it wasn't over yet, not by a long shot. He had fought for his survival, and he had made a statement. The arena was still, except for the distant echoes of the alien crowd's murmurs. Ethan stood tall, chest heaving with every breath, his hands covered in the blood of the alien Coroner. His heart was racing, his body sore from the brutal fight. He had done it. He had defeated the unthinkable. The arena's champion, one of the deadliest warriors in the galaxy, was now nothing more than a corpse beneath his feet. And yet, despite the silence around him, Ethan felt no relief. The victory was hard-earned, but it didn't bring him the peace he had expected. He wasn't here for glory or fame. He wasn't even here to prove anything to the alien overlords or their bloodthirsty audience. He was here to survive, to show them that humans were more than weak prey, and he had done that. But deep inside, Ethan knew this victory wasn't the end, not by a long shot. He took a slow, steadying breath as he wiped the blood from his face. The heat of the battle still burned in his chest, and the noise of the crowd became a dull hum in his ears. As his gaze swept over the fallen form of Coroner, a wave of exhaustion washed over him. His legs were shaking, his muscles screaming, but he couldn't afford to stop. Not now. He glanced toward the alien audience. Their eyes, once filled with mocking anticipation, were now wide with something else, fear, disbelief, maybe even awe. They had watched as he fought Coroner, had seen the impossible happen. But Ethan knew it wasn't just the alien warriors who were watching him. The entire galaxy was watching, and for the first time in his life, he wasn't just a survivor. He was a symbol of defiance, a symbol of the strength of the human spirit. The announcer's voice broke through the silence. The human, Ethan Drake, has proven himself worthy in the arena. His victory is unprecedented, but the trials are not over. Ethan's heart sank. He knew this wasn't just a game. He knew that the aliens hadn't brought him here to fight for sport. They had brought him here to die. And just because he had defeated their greatest warrior didn't mean they would let him go. As the announcer's voice echoed through the speakers, Ethan's eyes scanned the arena. He could feel the eyes of the crowd on him, but he didn't flinch. He wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing him break. He had survived so far by keeping his focus, by keeping his mind sharp and his emotions in check. And now, more than ever, he had to stay strong, because the worst was yet to come. The air around him seemed to grow heavier, as if the very atmosphere of the arena was closing in on him. He heard the sound of massive gates opening and his body tensed. He had survived Coroner, but now they were sending something worse. From the far side of the arena, the ground began to tremble, and the doors slowly parted, revealing a new opponent. This time, it wasn't an alien warrior. It wasn't a giant beast. It was something far more terrifying. The creature that emerged was humanoid, but it was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. Its skin was a pale, grayish hue, and its eyes were pure black, no iris, no whites, just darkness. It stood nearly twice as tall as Ethan, with limbs that were thin but deceptively strong. Its face was emotionless, cold, as if it were a machine programmed for one thing, to kill. This was the Enforcer, an elite assassin that had been sent to eliminate those who posed a real threat to the alien empire. The Enforcer had no name, no history, just a single purpose: destruction. It was an unstoppable force, a creature who had killed countless beings across the galaxy, and now it had come for Ethan. The crowd's excited murmurs filled the air again, but this time there was a sense of fear in their voices. They knew the Enforcer. They knew its reputation. The previous fights had been brutal, but this was different. Ethan wasn't just facing an alien warrior anymore. He was facing a weapon designed to kill with precision and efficiency. Ethan's stomach twisted as the Enforcer stepped closer, its black eyes locked onto his. The creature didn't speak. It didn't need to. Its presence alone was enough to send a chill down his spine. But Ethan refused to be intimidated. He had already faced death in the form of Coroner. He wasn't going to let this thing take him down, not now. "Come on, then," Ethan muttered to himself, taking a deep breath. His voice was barely a whisper, but his resolve was firm. "Let's see what you've got." The Enforcer didn't waste a moment. It moved with terrifying speed, its limbs stretching forward like lightning. Ethan barely had time to react as the creature's fist came crashing toward him. He jumped to the side, his body aching with the effort, but he managed to avoid the blow. The crowd gasped in unison, sensing the change in the atmosphere. This wasn't just another fight. This was the final test, and Ethan wasn't just fighting for his own life. He was fighting for something bigger. The Enforcer turned, its body a blur of motion, and this time it came at Ethan with even more force. Its legs moved like pistons, launching it across the arena in a series of swift, calculated movements. Ethan ducked, dodging just in time to avoid its second strike. He was faster than before, but the creature was relentless, and each of its movements was precise. But Ethan had learned from every battle. He had learned to survive, to adapt, and most importantly, to fight back. His body was sore, his muscles burned from the effort, but he wasn't going to stop. He couldn't. Ethan feinted to the left, drawing the Enforcer's strike away from him, then quickly darted right, aiming for the creature's exposed side. His fist landed with a sickening thud, but the creature didn't falter. It barely seemed to notice. It was stronger than anything Ethan had faced before. But there was one thing it didn't have. It didn't have heart. Ethan's eyes flicked to the creature's neck, a small, vulnerable spot just beneath its armor. He saw his chance. With a swift, focused motion, he darted forward, using all his remaining strength to drive his fist into the Enforcer's throat. The creature staggered back, gasping for air. It was stunned. Ethan didn't waste the opportunity. With one last, powerful punch, Ethan landed a blow that sent the Enforcer crashing to the sand. The crowd was silent. Ethan stood over the creature, his body shaking from the effort. His chest heaved with each breath, but his eyes remained locked on the Enforcer's lifeless form. He had done it. He had defeated it. For a moment, everything was still. The arena was quiet, the air thick with anticipation. And then the silence was broken. The crowd erupted into applause, but Ethan didn't hear them. He didn't care about their applause. He had won. He had proven once again that humans weren't to be underestimated. That no matter how big, how strong, or how relentless the enemy, they would always find a way to fight back. And Ethan had fought with everything he had, Ethan stood in the center of the arena, his chest rising and falling with every labored breath. His body ached, his muscles screamed in protest, but his mind remained sharp. The creature he had just defeated, the Enforcer, lay motionless at his feet. The crowd, which had been filled with laughter and mockery just hours earlier, was now eerily silent. For the first time, Ethan felt the weight of his actions. He had fought with everything he had, and for the first time in his life, he had fought for something bigger than himself. The alien predators, once sure of their superiority, were now watching him in stunned silence. They had thought that their arena would break him. They had believed that no human, especially one like him, could ever survive. But Ethan had defied them, and now something had shifted. The announcer's voice rang through the arena again, but this time it sounded different, filled with a strange kind of respect. The human, Ethan Drake, has once again proven his strength, but the final trial awaits. A chill ran down Ethan's spine. The final trial. He had heard whispers in the dark corners of the ship, rumors of the ultimate challenge. The aliens had always reserved their most dangerous, most powerful opponent for the last fight. They wanted to break him, but he wasn't ready to give up yet. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. This fight had become personal. The air in the arena shifted, and the loud clang of gates opening reached Ethan's ears. His eyes narrowed as a heavy, familiar feeling settled in the pit of his stomach. He had been through so much already, but there was something about this moment that felt different. This time, it wasn't just about physical strength. This time, he was about to face the very heart of the arena's cruelty. And he was ready. The next gate slowly began to open. The creature that stepped into the arena wasn't just another alien beast or warrior. It wasn't like the others. It was the highest-ranking general of the alien forces, a being so feared that even the bravest warriors hesitated at its name. Its name was Karthak. It was said to be a being of pure death, designed not only to fight but to dominate, to destroy everything in its path. Its skin was dark and jagged, covered in sharp, obsidian-like armor. Its eyes were cold, its expression unreadable behind its reflective mask. The very air around it seemed to pulse with deadly intent. The crowd stirred, whispers filling the stands as the arena grew even more tense. This wasn't just a battle. This was the culmination of everything that had been building up to this moment. Ethan's grip tightened around the makeshift weapon in his hand, his knuckles white from the force of his hold. The alien weapon he had used in the last few fights was cracked and bent, but it was still functional, still sharp. It was all he had left. Karthak's footsteps were slow, deliberate, each one sending a ripple of fear through the audience. The creature's long, clawed fingers flexed as it sized up Ethan, its dark eyes glowing with menace. The alien general didn't need to speak. Its presence alone was enough to send a wave of dread through the arena. But Ethan didn't back down. "Is this it?" he muttered under his breath, barely able to contain the anger that surged through him. "This is the best you've got." He didn't know if it was the exhaustion of the past battles or the pure defiance burning inside him, but something inside Ethan refused to bend. He had already been knocked down too many times in his life. He wasn't going to let this creature take him down. Karthak raised its massive weapon, a jagged black blade that hummed with dark energy. The blade was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. It glowed with a malevolent aura, the edges seeming to shimmer as if alive. The weapon was designed for one thing, to kill, and Karthak was an expert. The alien general let out a low growl, its voice reverberating through the air. "You have fought well, human, but your fight ends now." Ethan didn't wait for the creature to make its move. He wasn't going to let the alien control the pace of the battle. He charged first, his legs burning with the effort, his feet kicking up sand as he lunged toward Karthak. The general's eyes glowed brighter, and in one swift motion, it swung its blade down at Ethan with terrifying speed. The force of the blow was enough to make the ground tremble beneath them, but Ethan was ready. He sidestepped just in time, narrowly avoiding the deadly edge as it sliced through the air where his head had been just a second before. His instincts kicked in. The fight wasn't about strength, it was about movement, strategy, and taking every advantage he could find. The alien was strong, faster than he was, but Ethan had his own weapon, his will to survive. Ethan darted around the creature, using its own speed and power against it. Every time Karthak swung, Ethan ducked and dodged, narrowly avoiding the deadly strikes. It was like dancing with death, each movement calculated, each breath a risk. He moved closer, pushing himself beyond what his body thought it could handle. Every swing of Karthak's blade was a deadly promise. But Ethan wasn't backing down. His heart was pounding, but his mind was clear. He needed to find the opening, and he would. Then it came. Karthak made a misstep, just a brief moment of hesitation. It raised its blade high, and in that split second, Ethan lunged. He moved with all his remaining strength, his body diving toward Karthak's exposed side. The alien general let out a roar as Ethan drove his weapon into the creature's side, piercing through its jagged armor. Karthak staggered back, surprised by the human's audacity. Ethan didn't hesitate. He twisted the weapon deeper, aiming for the alien's vital organs. Karthak's growls turned into a screech of pain, its massive body writhing. Ethan kept pressing. He pushed with every ounce of his strength, ignoring the searing pain in his own body. Karthak swung its blade desperately, but the alien general's movements were growing weaker. Ethan could feel it. The alien was slowing. It was losing. With one last, furious strike, Ethan drove the weapon deep into Karthak's chest, twisting it to ensure the creature couldn't fight back. The alien general let out a final, horrific roar before collapsing to the ground, its massive form crumpling beneath its own weight. The arena was silent. Ethan stood, his breath ragged, his hands covered in blood, both his and the creature. His body trembled, his limbs threatening to give way beneath him. He had done it. He had survived, but this wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about proving something to the entire galaxy. As the dust began to settle, Ethan looked up. The crowd that had once jeered, laughed, and mocked him now sat in stunned silence. They had watched him fight, watched him bleed, and now they watched him stand victorious. Ethan didn't need their applause. He didn't need their approval. He had done it for himself, and for every human who had ever been underestimated, overlooked, or cast aside. He wasn't just a survivor. He was a warrior, and the galaxy would never forget his name. Ethan stood in the center of the arena, his legs shaking from the strain of the battle, his body bloodied and battered. He looked down at the lifeless form of Karthak, the once feared alien general who had thought he could crush him. The crowd, which had once filled the arena with jeers and laughter, now watched in stunned silence. The last fight had been brutal, but Ethan wasn't just a fighter anymore. He wasn't just a human facing death for entertainment. He was a symbol. A human who had defied the odds, who had defeated the most powerful warriors, and now stood at the very heart of the alien empire. But victory didn't bring peace. It only brought more uncertainty. The sound of the alien announcer filled the arena, but this time the words felt different. The human Ethan Drake has triumphed over Karthak, the greatest warrior in the galaxy. The final trial will now begin. Ethan's heart dropped into his stomach. The final trial. It wasn't over. It would never be over. No matter how many fights he won, no matter how many creatures he took down, the aliens would never let him go. Not unless he proved to them that he could stand against everything they threw at him. But this time he wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for something far bigger than that. He was fighting for Earth, for humanity, and he was going to make sure they never thought of them as prey again. The ground rumbled beneath his feet as a massive door at the far end of the arena opened. Ethan's body tensed, his muscles still aching from the last fight, but he knew that this battle would be unlike any he had faced before. He could already hear the whispers of the crowd, their voices filled with awe, fear, and excitement. He wasn't just a prisoner anymore, he was a warrior. And then from the shadows stepped a new enemy, this one unlike anything he had ever seen. The creature that emerged from the dark was taller than anything he had fought before, its body an intimidating mass of armor and thick, ridged skin. Its face was a mixture of reptilian and insectoid features, sharp mandibles twitching with every movement. Its eyes glowed with a cold, unnatural light, and its limbs were long and muscular, ending in sharp, claw-like hands that could tear through steel. The creature was a terror, a living weapon designed to kill and destroy. Ethan could feel his heart race as it stepped forward, its presence overwhelming. The crowd went silent, the excitement in the air so thick it could almost be touched. Ethan didn't have time to hesitate. He was already feeling the weight of the battle in his bones, the exhaustion creeping in, but there was no choice. He had to fight. He had to survive. This was the final trial. The announcer's voice rang out again. "Behold the Vendar, the last of its kind. It has killed countless challengers. Let the final fight begin." The Vendar let out a guttural growl, its massive chest heaving with each breath. It was everything Ethan feared, a creature bred for destruction. And yet, despite the terror that rose in his chest, something inside him stirred. It wasn't fear. It was the fire that had been ignited in him the moment he first stepped into this arena. He wasn't going to back down, not now. The Vendar moved with terrifying speed, its claws swinging toward Ethan with deadly intent. Ethan's body reacted instinctively, and he dove to the side, narrowly missing the strike. His muscles screamed with the effort, but he refused to stop. His body ached, but his willpower was stronger. He wasn't going to let this thing take him down. Not now. Ethan scrambled to his feet, his eyes scanning the arena for something, anything that could help him. He saw no weapons, no tools, nothing but sand and debris. But then his eyes fell on something, a large piece of broken rock, jagged and sharp. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. He grabbed it, his fingers wrapping around the rough surface, and turned to face the Vendar, which was already charging at him with its claws extended. The creature's speed was incredible, but Ethan had no choice. He had to strike first. With a roar, the Vendar lunged, but this time Ethan was ready. He swung the jagged rock with everything he had, striking the alien across the face. The creature howled, a deep, spine-chilling sound, but it didn't stop. Instead, it only grew angrier, more relentless. Ethan stumbled backward, barely dodging another strike. The Vendar's claws scraped across his side, tearing through his shirt and leaving deep gashes in his flesh. He gritted his teeth against the pain. This wasn't the time to falter. The Vendar wasn't just strong, it was smart. It adapted quickly, using its long limbs and powerful legs to keep Ethan at bay. Every time Ethan tried to move in, the creature responded with a brutal counterattack, forcing him back. He was faster, but the Vendar was stronger, and it wasn't slowing down. Ethan's mind raced. He needed to find an opening, something that would give him the edge. He couldn't afford to make another mistake. Every movement mattered. And then he saw it, the creature's underbelly. It was slightly exposed when it swung its claws, leaving just enough space for Ethan to slip through. With a surge of adrenaline, Ethan darted forward. The Vendar roared as it raised its claws, but Ethan was already beneath it. He drove the jagged rock into the creature's soft underbelly, twisting it with every ounce of strength he had left. The Vendar's roar of pain echoed through the arena, but it didn't give up. It swung its arms wildly, trying to knock Ethan off, but the human held on, refusing to let go. The creature's claws found their mark, tearing through Ethan's leg. Blood poured from the wound, but Ethan didn't stop. He pushed deeper, twisting the rock again, until the Vendar's roar turned into a gurgled cry. The creature stumbled, its massive body swaying. Ethan didn't hesitate. With one final push, he drove the rock into the creature's chest. The Vendar let out a final, choking sound before collapsing to the ground with a heavy crash. The arena was silent. Ethan stood over the fallen creature, his breath coming in ragged gasps, his body shaking from the effort. He had done it. He had defeated the Vendar, the last challenge in the arena. But it wasn't the end. The announcer's voice came through again, but this time it sounded different, almost as if the aliens were in awe. Victory to the human. Ethan Drake, you have defeated all challengers. You are the last one standing. Ethan looked up, his heart still pounding in his chest. The crowd was silent, their eyes fixed on him. He could feel their disbelief, but he wasn't done yet. This was only the beginning. He had won, but now it was time to take the final step, to show these aliens that humanity would never bow down. Ethan didn't need their approval. He didn't need their recognition. He had proven one thing: humans were not to be underestimated, and he would make sure they never forgot.